Welcome to Retire Hour, the weekly show discussing income planning, investing, tax planning, estate planning, and Medicare. Complete retirement education. Hear from our financial advisors, CPA, estate planning attorney, and Medicare advisor every week. This is Retire Hour.
Welcome into Retire Hour, the weekly show that keeps you up to date on the ever-changing landscape that is retirement. I'm Joshua Cicora, your host for this week, and we've got a full show for you. Stay tuned for the back half of the episode where we talk about healthcare, estate planning, and tax advising with what's going on in those industries. But to kick off the show, I've got Larry Clefcorn in the studio with me. Larry, you've got 3 points you want to bring to our audience's attention today, right?
Yeah. As I was thinking about, the different things we want to talk about, something that's on my mind a lot is the commonality that does exist among everyone we talk to. Now, doesn't mean they're all exactly the same. It also still upholds what we talk about is everyone has their thumbprint. Everyone has that.
Sure.
But the first thing is the single most influence in driving a person's chosen retirement date. Mm-hmm. And this is more than anything else, and it's why we have a department or, in fact, an entity that handles this very thing. That thing is Medicare.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a big piece.
Yeah. So many people would like to retire a little before 65, but that one thing, the cost of actually paying it out of their own pocket, they end up waiting till age 65.
Yeah, we see that often.
And now, one of the things that some of our people have encountered, and therefore our Medicare department is actually, now we refer to it as a healthcare department, because so oftentimes people, maybe it wasn't their own choice when their retirement was. Maybe they got a surprise buyout or something of that nature.
Happens.
But now they have something that we can bring them in, and I like to use this term because most people, are familiar with it, but a bridge.
Yeah.
So if they retire at 62 or 63, what can they have as a bridge until they qualify for Medicare because they've turned age 65? Okay. So that's something that we bring people in. I have some clients that just last week, that was the very scenario with them, is they wanted to retire, but they had that issue going on. And I said, you know what? We need to get you with our healthcare department.
Right. I mean, yeah, they probably could have found that information out for themselves, but they may not even known to ask the questions that would get them there.
Right.
Or once they found that out, known whether that was really a good idea or not. So it's nice having people here that have experience helping others with this, so that then they can take that experience and translate it into those people's situations.
Right. And, again, goes to that, most common reason people come to us is because we have things under one roof. Okay. Secondly, it's what I call the most overlooked or procrastinated part of planning by the public. Notice I didn't say strictly that this was a retiree problem.
Yeah.
And that would be estate planning.
That is the truth.
So many people want to put that off. They don't want to bother with it. They don't want to have to consider such things. Perhaps there might be a little friction between husband and wife. Maybe there were previous marriage that produced children, and there could be a lot of reasons. I like to always tell people this. The estate planning completion is important, but just as important in what happens after you die is that you have things in place while you're alive.
Yep.
So that someone can speak up and fight for you.
Right. And it's not that people don't know that it's important. It's just, life gets busy. It's hard to set that time aside to take care of something that you don't expect to be using, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. But you might.
Yeah.
You never know.
That's right. And then if we move to the third point, and that would be what is financial planning really? Because a lot of people come in and they're not just strictly interested in having their monies managed. They're wanting to have some financial planning to give them certainty so that they can see what stepping away from the workforce into this golden age of retirement, what that looks like. I always, I bring this up often. One of the best ways that someone articulated that to me was they said, Larry, I just don't want to stumble into retirement. And that's incredibly important. Now, coupled with that, it seems like the most important item that they want combined with their financial plan and knowing how long their money will last and so forth is they are concerned about how tax law, how is this going to affect them?
And that makes a lot of sense. If you're talking to them about keeping their, the asset longevity and their income streams, tax is just the flip side of that coin. It's how is this outflow that I can't really control going to impact retirement?
Yeah, and so I had the situation with Bill and Mary, and one of their real concerns is that all of their money was pre-tax, and the realization had come to them that they had a business partner in Uncle Sam.
Yep, and we see that all the time, and so people come in and they have these questions, and they find a lot of comfort in the fact that we can help them with getting the answers to these questions. And so if you find yourself at a loss with what to do with retirement, maybe you've been putting it off because all this stuff is just so complicated. Don't put it off any longer. If you'd like to set up a 15-minute introductory phone call to see what you might be missing in your retirement plans, reach out right now at 833-MAG-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376. Or go over to our website, retirehour.com. There, you can watch past episodes, submit a question, or schedule that 15-minute call with the Market Advisory Group team. Now, stay tuned. When we come back, we'll be talking with financial advisor Julie Newton about daylight savings time and Ben Franklin. I'm sure it'll make sense when she explains it. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back into Retire Hour. I've got a rare treat in the studio today. We've got Julie Newton from our Kansas City office in person this week to talk about, wait, am I reading this right? Ben Franklin and daylight savings time?
Well, I can't go with the traditional old regular stuff. We got to make it interesting, right?
That's right. That's right.
My question to you is, because we just changed to daylight savings time. Ugh. I'm sorry, I like it. I like those longer days, but whatever.
It's the switch nobody likes.
It's the switch nobody likes. You're right. That's true. It's the switch. So do you know who invented daylight savings time?
I don't actually.
Well, I'm pretty sure we were taught in school that it was Benjamin Franklin. But did you know it was not Benjamin Franklin?
No, who was it?
Well, technically, it was invented by or thought up by a variety of people across the world. but it was not until 1918 that the United States actually implemented daylight savings time.
Ugh, awful. Anyway,
They were trying to save energy. So what's really funny about it is, and why I bring it up, it's that whole, have you ever had something that you just keep doing the same old thing because it doesn't seem to be broke, so why fix it?
yeah.
That's kind of what daylight savings time is, right? Well, they've been trying to repeal that and get rid of it. So they brought it on World War I, got rid of it. Back in World War II, got rid of it. Then in 1966, it became this permanent thing. It's this whole back and forth and trying to repeal it, and we don't really need this thing anymore, and let's get rid of it. People do that with their taxes. Do they not?
I was thinking that, and I was like, oh, I don't want to side retract it, but no, you're going right there.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's
exactly
what they do. It doesn't matter whether it's their investments, whether it's, like Larry was talking about, estate planning, whether it is taxes or health insurance. Doesn't matter. If it's not broke, nobody looks at it, nobody fixes it, right?
That is the truth.
And they kind of take this idea that, well, you know what, last year I got a refund, I'm fine. Or, you know what, I made money on my investments last year, I'm fine, we're just going to ignore it. And then all of a sudden they get a statement or they owe money.
Yep.
And it's like, now what do we do? You know? And so the whole point is kind of like daylight savings time. Don't just shove it over there in the corner and just let it keep happening because nobody really knows what it's all about. Do something about it. Look at that tax return. We do tax planning every fall, right?
We sure do.
You betcha. It's a great thing. Our clients love it. Do that tax planning. Know what that's going to look like before you get the big surprise.
Yep.
Review your investments regularly. Know what that looks like before you get a big surprise, because you never know when you're going to run into something that becomes obsolete. Kind of like daylight savings time has become.
Yeah.
So review stuff, make sure you're talking to the right professionals, because if you just ignore something, it kind of hangs around forever and ever and doesn't necessarily get you anywhere.
And then you grumble about it and you grumble about it, and it's like a little bit like a rock in the shoe. It hurts.
Yeah.
Is it enough to make you want to dig it out? Maybe, maybe not. We see this, especially this time of the year, when people come in, we do their taxes, and they don't get the refund they're looking for. Do they come see us about tax planning? Well, unless they're, working with you, they tend not to.
Right.
And they do that when we are working together, because we have this relationship, and that the whole relationship is built around the cycle of advising, right? You see them at different times of the year. One of those we talk about, we do the tax return, and then another one we do that tax plan, and that just kind of keeps cranking this wheel on this cycle.
Yeah.
Kind of like how we switch on and off from daylight savings time, right?
Right. And think about it. When do we switch daylight savings time? We just did, and then we do again in the fall, right?
We do.
We do. So if you're thinking about that, and we all think about, because like you said, it's the change. When we change that clock, that's when it's the hardest. So if you're thinking, okay, it's time to switch the clock, have you been to see one of your advisors? Have you talked to the tax professional? Have you talked to your investment professional? There's more to this whole springing forward thing than just, oh my gosh, I get to use this as an excuse of why I'm late for everything for at least a week or two, right?
That's right. That's right. So you change your clocks, you change your smoke alarm batteries, you check on your financial plan.
Exactly. If you get in that habit, then you're getting that kind of service that you need, and you don't have to worry about those unhappy little surprises when taxes didn't go the way you wanted them to, investments aren't going the way you want them to,
That's right.
The whole thing all at once, you take care of it. So I have to tell you this, my mother used to say this thing about daylight savings time. And hopefully she listens to this and she hears this, because it'll make her chuckle. But she always said that daylight savings time was like chopping off the top of the blanket, sewing it to the bottom end to make the blanket longer.
You know, it's actually funny you say that. Just the other night, my kid was complaining about daylight savings time and she asked, well, where does this extra hour of sunlight even come from that everybody's talking about? And you're right. You're just taking it from one end of the blanket and putting it on the other and saying there's more daylight.
Exactly. And it's truly the same with our financial everything, whether it's our taxes, estate planning, or, our investments, healthcare, doesn't matter. If we're just saying, again, okay, it was fine last year, you're cutting off the top of that blanket, you're sewing it on the bottom, hoping that you can extend all those good vibes for a little bit longer.
Oh, and so you keep doing that year after year, and eventually your blanket's just a bunch of tatters because you've kept cutting and stitching it.
Right. And then how are you going to survive retirement if you keep doing that till you turn your blanket into tatters?
That's right. That's right.
You didn't think I was going to tie daylight savings time to what we do, did you?
That was an eloquent metaphor.
Well, sometimes I'm creative.
Now, while he may not have invented daylight savings time, Ben Franklin was known as an inventor. Bifocal glasses, lightning rods, swimming fins. But one thing he didn't invent was somewhere to get all your retirement needs all in one place. Market Advisor Group, though, is that place. And all it takes is a 15-minute phone call to find out if we're the right team for you. If you'd like to set up that 15-minute introductory phone call, reach out right now at 833-MAG-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376. Or go on over to our website, retirehour.com. There you can watch past episodes, submit a question, or schedule that 15-minute phone call with the Market Advisor Group team. Now, when we come back, we'll still be with Julie Newton and answering a listener question. Stay tuned. Welcome back into Retire Hour. Now, this is the segment of the show we usually reserve for listener questions. So if you've got a question you'd like us to answer on air, just go on over to that retirehour.com, click Submit a Question. And if we end up answering your question on a future episode, we'll get you your choice of swag. We've got hats, mugs, chips, clips, and a whole lot more. Now, today's question comes from Anonymous. Apparently they've taken a break from hacking, the governments and corporations and want to learn about retirement, apparently. Hopefully they've got some good pension options. Anonymous asks, how do I get a 401k out? Julie Newton, what do you think?
Well, I promise not to bring daylight savings time into this question. So, it's really funny. I've been in this industry for about 20 years. So for me, it's like second nature. I know how that, but I'm surprised always how many people have that question. In fact, lady I spoke with yesterday asked the same exact question. Okay, we spent all of this time getting money in the 401k. Now what? How do we get it out? So part of this plays into what you do, though, because it depends on what your tax situation is. But simple answer, when you're ready, you can either call and say, I need a distribution out of my 401k, or you can set up regular distributions, depends on your needs. But the key part is taxes, because it needs to fit your situation to make sure that you're paying enough in, right?
That's right. And so when I'm in the conference room and we're meeting people for the first time and they ask that, which happens regularly.
Yeah.
And, the financial advisors say something similar to what you just said. And I'll say, you don't really want to take money out of that 401k. 401ks are great plans to save money. Yeah. It's in there with your payroll, so it's automatic. You don't ever see it. They've got high contribution limits, so you can put a lot away. What they're really not designed for, though, is to take money out of when you're retired. Right. And that's for a couple reasons. When you're retired, your income situation is going to move around. As you take distributions, different things come online. 401ks are required to withhold at 20% taxes. There is no 20% bracket, so that is never the right answer for somebody's situation. And then a lot of states also have minimum withholding requirements. Yeah. In Kansas, it's 5%. At least that's close to what Kansas's rates are. So what I tell people they need to do is roll that out to an IRA. There is no tax consequence to that.
Yeah.
When you do that and you take distributions out of that IRA later, you choose what level of withholding so that they are appropriately dialed into your situation. And then, this is usually where I kick it back to the financial advisor, you also gain investment control. When it's in that IRA, you get to choose how it's invested,
Right.
as opposed to your 401k, which you only get the options the employer gives you.
Right. And that was the exact conversation. I love the way you answered that. That's the exact conversation that I had with the lady yesterday. It's like, so, if you think about it, those employer plans are written for the employer. It's a package put together. And so you get whatever investment options that they've purchased, so to speak.
And so what I would tell people, because that's exactly what we talk about too when we're having that conversation, is that you are not the customer of that 401k
No.
provider. It's your employer. And so they're
Exactly.
designing these employer benefit plans to meet the needs of the employer. And one of those needs is low cost.
Right.
So do you think you're getting fantastic investments in there?
No, of course not.
They're probably okay.
I use the example of my daughter's 401k. When she first started her 401k, she had probably 40 different investment options. Not going to use the company name, but
Sure.
she had like 40 different investment options. She's got like 15 now over the course of 10 years. It's because that's how employers can save money on those 401k plans, because they are the customer, they want to save money. And one of the ways is reducing what the options are available. So yeah, it's your 401k. And like you said, great place to save money, but it's not a great place to start that distribution of money. So tax-free to roll it from the 401k to an IRA, right?
That's right.
Costs you no money. So roll it out of there. You get control. You get to control your taxes. You get to control your investments. That sounds like a win-win to me.
Right. I mean, you really lose nothing. I mean, maybe I've seen a lot of these places will have like a $50 processing fee or something
Yeah.
stupid like that. And it's really just them taking kind of a last bite of that apple before you take your money and go do other things with it. But you gain all that tax control. You gain all that investment control. You have a lot more insight into it because you can meet with a financial advisor such as yourself regularly.
Yeah.
Whereas on that 401k plan, you're going to have to call an 800 number and deal the whole thing over the phone.
Exactly. And that anybody that's ever tried that, and we've done it a lot, they know what a challenge that can absolutely be, because those folks that answer the phone, they're very good people. They're there to help you, but sometimes they have to pass you from person to person. It just gets very, very complicated and frustrating. So it's worth that $50 to $100 to get your money out of there and get control.
That's right. And then you start having that relationship with the advisor. You start talking about tax planning, and it just benefits you all from there.
Yep, absolutely.
Now, everyone out there listening, this is why it takes a team working together. These things can fall through the cracks if you aren't careful. If you don't have a full team working together for you, just reach out right now at 833-MAG-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376. Or go over to our website, retirehour.com. There you can watch those past episodes, submit a question, or schedule that 15-minute call with the entire Market Advisory Group team. Well, stay tuned. When we come back, we'll be talking to Trey Bossa about the Medicare timeline. We'll be right back after these messages. Well, welcome back into Retire Hour. Now, this is the part of the show where we discuss some other aspects of retirement like healthcare, estate planning, and taxes. With me in studio right now, I've got Trey Bossa, health insurance advisor with Market Medicare Advisors. Trey, tell me a little about the timeline for starting Medicare.
Hey, thanks for bringing that up, because the timeline has been one thing since I started in this industry, and it's kind of grown into something else. I only say that because of how we are working with clients to get their Medicare Parts A and B started. At some point, that process is out of our control. We have to work with the Social Security Administration to get their Parts A and B started. And that is out of our control. We have to send in the paperwork, they have to process it, they have to issue the card, the number, all of that fun stuff. So the timeline that we recommend is about three months in advance, whether it's before your 65th birthday or in the future, if you're working past 65, 3 months before your hard retirement date, 3 months in advance to really start all of that processing, all of that paperwork.
Let me ask this just out of curiosity here. So you were talking about two different triggering events. One is turning 65. One is when you separate from your employer and lose the employer coverage. How do those two timelines play in with Part A, which doesn't cost anything? And tell me a little about that.
The big hang up with Part A is people pick it up for $0 a month. Thanks to their work history, they can get it for $0 a month. But what some people neglect to think about is when you start any part of Medicare, you can no longer contribute to a health savings account. And that is just shortening an opportunity for folks to put away a little bit more for medical events down the road.
Yeah. And health savings accounts are one of the kind of unsung heroes of a retirement plan. You know, when you're working, you can put money into that account and get a tax deduction. Doesn't matter what your income level is, so long as you have the high deductible health plan, which lets you make those HSA contributions, you can put that money away. And then when you take it out in the future, you don't pay tax on it then either, so long as it's for medical stuff. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. Deduction when you put it in, no taxes when it comes out. So people who have that plan and that can have that, health savings account, that's a really powerful benefit for them.
Exactly. I encourage people to maximize those contributions as long as possible. Usually it's people are thinking about starting Part A at 65. We'll talk about maybe pushing that off until 67 because they already have their workplace health insurance. They could buy themselves a couple more years. There is a max contribution to an HSA, right?
Per year,
Per year.
But per year only.
Right. So taking that into consideration versus maybe what they would spend on Medicare or just in premiums through a lower premium, a lower deductible kind of workplace plan. These are all of these factors that we need to talk about before anybody starts any part of Medicare Part A. Because, well, let's talk about that second triggering event. Past 65, you're wanting to separate from your employer and your workplace insurance. You want to start Part A. There's going to be a look back period on those HSA contributions. Yep. 6 months.
6 months.
6 months of a look back period. And if you don't cease contributions to your HSA, there could be some tax implications. If you don't cut off those contributions and you plan accordingly 6 months in advance. See, we were already talking about 3 months. Now I have to bring up a 6-month plan. Hey, need you to stop here. With contributions, need you to fill out paperwork, send it in for processing, wait for your card. We just having a conversation. We extended it from 3 to 6 months.
So we've got 3 months. We've got 6 months. We've got 65. We've got leaving your employer and full on retiring. That's a lot of balls to be juggling all at one time. How do people do that?
It usually starts off with a conversation.
Okay.
People come in and they talk to us all the time about, hey, I want to start Medicare. I want to retire. I want to start Social Security. It's a little bit more complicated than that because every individual is going to have personal circumstances that go into this retirement plan. There are going to be a lot of different steps to get to that point where they can leave work and transition to Medicare seamlessly, to transition into retirement assets seamlessly. And having that conversation younger and younger is not necessarily a bad thing, but obviously there's going to be too young people who come in at 55, maybe a little bit too young, 60, maybe the sweet spot, 63. That's where I want to talk to people about Medicare. I want them to start thinking about, okay, in a couple of years, if you're ready, we're going to be talking about moving from workplace insurance to Medicare. And this is what you need to know.
Fantastic. And so to get that conversation started, I mean, you're kind of starting it right now, right? You are talking to a lot of people all at the same time right now. Mm-hmm. And some of them are going to be in that 60, 63, just prior to 65 window. Mm-hmm. And so listen up. This is your call that you need to start having these conversations, right?
Ring, ring. Hello. I want to talk to you, because all of these different factors, they're going to play into the conversation. We need to talk about another thing, and for Medicare, another thing that we need to talk about is your tax return from 2 years ago. So now we went from 3 months to 6 months to 2 years ago. We need to be considering a bunch of different factors.
Now, I don't think you were sitting out there for the first segment of the show, but this is one of the things that Larry talked about in the first segment about how important healthcare comes into when you get to retire.
Yeah, your healthcare, like when you're in the midst of your career, you're probably in your highest earning years of your life at the end of your career. And when you're talking about preparing for your healthcare, you need to weigh how much that could potentially cost in the future. And there's really only two routes for you to consider on Medicare. One has a little bit more risk than the other, and we talk about with folks to make sure that they're okay accepting those kinds of risks when they're choosing healthcare plans on Medicare.
And now with the new administration coming in, there's almost certain to be big changes coming to the Medicare system. And if you don't have someone there to walk you through those changes, it might be time to reach out. Sometimes all it takes is that 15-minute call to see what you might be missing in your retirement plans. And if you'd like to set up that 15-minute introductory phone call, reach out right now, 833-MAG-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376. Or go on over to our website, retirehour.com. There, you can watch past episodes, submit a question, or schedule that 15-minute call with the Market Advisory Group team. Well, now stay tuned. When we come back, we'll be talking to Gerald Eidelman about trust funding. We'll be right back after this. Well, welcome back into Retire Hour. With me in studio, I've got Gerald Eidelman, founder of the Eidelman Law Firm. Gerald, what do you need for setting up a trust?
Well, that's an interesting question. Setting up a trust is one part of the equation. Setting up a trust, requires to meet with an attorney, discuss your situation, what your wishes are for the future, and set up a plan that will make it easy as possible for your heirs to get your assets when you pass away, or you to have your assets available if you become incapacitated. But a lot of people stop there. They think once they've done the plan, that's done. And unfortunately, that is not the case. The key to a successful estate plan, especially if you're doing a trust, which a lot of the people that I work with do, because having a trust avoids going to court after you die, going through probate, saves a lot of money in legal fees. And so most people, a great number of people, let's say, choose a trust. Now, a trust is a living thing, and a trust, it's a separate entity when you die, and it takes on a life on its own. And whatever it's in the trust is what is going to be passed along as you wanted it to be. Now, that's where the problem started. Most people set up a trust, they think they're ready, and they set it and forget it. We do some part of transferring some of their assets into the trust, like their home or something like that. But a lot of people will just be content with that. They figure that they did their work. They didn't want to do it in the first place. They got that out of the way. Let's not think about it ever again. And the problem is that in order to be able to have the trust be effective and your wishes to be carried out, there's several things you have to do in order to be able to do that. And one of those is fund your trust. Now, fund your trust means that you put in your assets into the trust, so when you die, the assets are in the trust and distributable through the trust. A lot of people fail to put some of their assets in the trust. They're not careful. They don't tell us everything they have. I had one lady, she had like 4 or 5 accounts that she never transferred to the trust.
Ugh.
Yeah, and that had to go through probate because there was no other way to pass. In the process, she had disinherited one daughter in her trust. Through probate, she couldn't do that, and the daughter got a portion of that money that she never intended for that daughter to get. So not funding the trust properly and create consequences, unexpected consequences. Now, I run into this a lot. A lot of people come in and say, well, I did a trust 10 years ago. We put the house in there and everything's in there. And then I sit down and review the trust to talk about several things. Like one of the things that people don't realize, or don't think about, I should say, is the laws change over time. When we had that big change in 2019 to the retirement account, the
Secure Act.
Act, that changed the way we can handle and distribute funds from those accounts.
Yep.
And some of the trusts that I was viewing had references to the life expectancy of a beneficiary that now no longer had a life expectancy to distribute. And that would create problems because the trust contradicted what the law was said. So we have to go back and update those things. But the biggest thing, like I said, is people leaving things out. You know, when you first set it up, you put your house in there. It's very simple to do. You might schedule all your accounts in there. But as time passes, things change. One of the things that changes, people move. And a lot of times when people are buying a new property, the title company does not necessarily assign the property to the trust. They usually sell it to the couple buying the property.
Yep.
Then the family is not conscious of the fact that they need to put in the trust. That gets in their personal assets, and when they die, all those assets, the house has to go through probate. Now, people should understand why you want to avoid probate in the first place. It's time consuming. It takes 6 months to a year before it can be completed. It is a public process where everybody knows what's happening to you and your heirs. It's supervised by the court, so you can't do whatever you want to. And most of all, it's extremely expensive. It's not unusual for something as simple as a home to have to cost $8,000 in legal fees just to transfer it.
Gotcha. Wow. So the long story short on this segment is that trusts are not like slow cookers. You don't set it and forget it.
That's right.
Got to keep reviewing it, make sure it's updated with law changes in your life, all those sorts of things. And while you might be able to figure out some of these things for yourself and get them set up, some things are just best left to the professionals who do this day in and day out. You don't want to leave anything to chance with your estate plan. So especially because you won't be here to fix issues when they pop up. So if you'd like to set up a 15-minute introductory phone call just to talk to us about what you might need, what might be missing from your retirement plan, reach out right now. 833-MAG-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376. Or go over to our website, retirehour.com. There you can watch past episodes, submit a question, or schedule that 15-minute call with the Market Advisory Group team. Well, now stay tuned. When we come back, we'll be talking to Lauren Dietz about changes to Social Security. And we'll be right back after this. Welcome back into Retire Hour. Now, to round out today's show, I've got Lauren Dietz in studio with me to talk about taxes. Lauren, let's talk about Social Security windfall.
Yeah, so Social Security Windfall, if you're not aware, there was a law that was signed in at the beginning of this year called the Social Security Fairness Act to make it more fair, you know?
Wow.
So it ended the Windfall Elimination Program, also known as WEP or WEP. That is basically if you worked as a firefighter or police officer or some government positions, federal government positions, as well as teachers. A lot of these people are affected by this, which basically they've been working at a job that hasn't been contributing into Social Security. So Social Security said, we're not going to pay you very much on your benefit. This eliminated that. So starting retroactive back to January 1st of 2024, they're getting a nice lump sum payment of what their benefits would have been if they had been contributing.
So they're going to get a big lump in their Social Security in 25.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, we're both tax people, so all I can think about is, oh my gosh, that is going to be a lot of make them have a lot more taxable Social Security in 25.
It sure will.
Now, obviously, we're not filing those returns today. That's for a year from now. Is there anything that can be done to deal with those taxes?
Yeah, so they can make a lump sum election where basically a piece of their Social Security that should have been paid to them in 2024, depending on what their income was for 24, they can make this election where that Social Security piece will be treated as it would be taxed as it would have been on that tax return.
Interesting. So it's not just, hey, you got an extra lot amount of Social Security. We've got to put some thinking and some calculations to it to get that tax answer.
Absolutely. And that's one of those opportunities where you should sit down with your tax person as well as your financial advisor and try to finagle that.
And now all I can think about is that person who's using whatever software you can think of and they're doing it themselves, which maybe in their situation normally that's fine. But now they've got, they've just learned about, they got the extra Social Security. They learned that there's some calculation they can do to see if they can reduce the taxes on it. But either they're looking in the mirror, asking their tax advisor, or they're calling the support for the tax software. And hopefully you're getting the right answer there and explaining the situation appropriately. What's the best way to find out these answers?
Hire a tax professional.
Oh my gosh, what a novel concept. Yeah, but I mean, we help people with this all the time. This is something that it's not something new to us.
No.
We've helped people with it. We know how to walk people through these calculations. I mean, not that we're even doing it in front of them, right? We're going through it. We're saying, okay, we can do this,
right,
or we can do that. Here's what happens if we do this. Here's what happens if we do that. And then they get to choose what the best answer for them is.
Yeah. And it's going to vary from person to person. Maybe 24 taking that lump sum election isn't a good idea. Maybe the answer is to take it all in 25. But when you sit down with your full team, they can help you decide that.
That's right. Yeah. So maybe let's say 24 is your first year of retirement. So you were getting a full year worth of back pay. Maybe that's when you separated from your full-time job. So there's like a big payout of vacation and sick leave.
Right.
Maybe there's some other things coming through that's causing 24 to be a high income year for you. That happens all the time. I mean, that's something we see regularly. And if you just hear about this in the news somewhere and you just by default take that option because, hey, everybody's talking about it, it must be a good idea, you could really be hurting yourself in the long run.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you could cause yourself a lot of tax pain in that year and not even realize it till it's a little too late.
That's right. Because once you've dealt with those taxes, I mean, it's really kind of difficult to unwind that.
That is very true.
All the more reason also, I mean, to have that tax planning conversation we have with people in the fourth quarter. Let's talk about at that point what makes the most sense in conjunction with, does it make sense to do something in your retirement situation to get you a better answer over the long haul?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So we got a couple extra minutes here. Any thoughts on tax season, how that's going?
One more month. one more month, but it's going well. Tax season is going well. I feel like we haven't had a lot of major tax law changes. I know that this is a big change, but this is really a more of a next year problem.
It is more of a next year problem. We're just talking about it now because we're starting to hear from people who are getting the payments now.
Yeah.
And so they're wanting to know what needs to be done. And like we just said, it's tax season now, right? So if you're someone who's been listening for a long time and you still aren't working with us, why not? Now's really the perfect time to come meet us and see how things work. Come and get your taxes started today to see if we might be a good fit for you. To make an appointment for taxes or talk to an advisor, just reach out right now at 833-MAG-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376. Unless you're driving and then wait till you get home. Or go over to our website, again, when you get home, at retirehour.com. There you can watch past episodes, submit a question, see what kind of swag we might send out if we use your question, or schedule an appointment with the Market Tax Services team. Well, that's all the time we have for this week. I'm Joshua Cicora, thanking you for tuning in to Retire Hour, and we'll see you next week.
Unless otherwise indicated, all client names have been changed to protect their identities. Investment advisory services are offered through Foundations Investment Advisors LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The content provided is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific investment opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns are not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in the states where it is registered or excluded or exempt from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by security regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. No legal or tax advice is provided. Always consult with a tax professional. Legal services are offered by Edelman Law Firm. Tax services offered by Market Tax Services. Market Advisory Group does not provide legal or tax advice. Any comments regarding safe and secure investments and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not in any way refer to investment advisory products. Rates and guarantees provided by insurance products and annuities are subject to the financial strength of the issuing insurance company, not guaranteed by any bank or the FDIC. The guest commentators featured in this show are not investment advisor representatives of Foundations and do not provide advisory services. Market Advisory Group does have several investment advisor representatives that can provide such services. This is not endorsed or affiliated with any U.S. government agency, the Social Security Administration, or associated with any federal Medicare program. We do not offer every plan available in your area. Any information we provide is limited to those plans we do offer in your area. Please contact Medicare.gov or 1-800-MEDICARE to get information on all of your options. A Roth conversion may not be suitable for your situation. The primary goal in converting retirement assets into a Roth IRA is to reduce the future tax liability on the distributions you take in retirement or on the distributions of your beneficiaries. The information provided is to help you determine whether or not a Roth IRA conversion may be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Please review your retirement savings, tax, and legacy planning strategies with your legal/tax advisor to be sure a Roth IRA conversion fits into your planning strategies. All rights reserved.